this Oscar chat is good, and like I've enjoyed being able to review good stuff recently. It's been a crazy change of pace, like instead of
Mm.
wading through like Marvel sludge or whatever. But
You still had to
you
wade
know,
through a little Marvel sludge.
duty,
Yeah.
yeah, duty calls, sadly. And, well, there is good news on the horizon, I will say, because Willow has been cancelled, tragically, after one
Yay.
season. um, Legit one of the worst fantasy shows I've ever seen in my entire life. Like,
Hard to
that was
watch. Very hard to watch.
disastrous. You even messaged me, Mauler, I think, and said, like, are you going to make me watch the whole season? Because this is really hard to
The
watch.
sacrifices for work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
I was almost completely out when that old dude died in the first episode. I was just like, nobody cared about it. He was just this good man who dies for no reason at all. Then it's like a comedy beat where they move on. I was just like, I hate stuff. Like this is gonna
Yeah.
be horrible.
I hate modern writing. And so, yeah, like Willow's been cancelled. Star Trek Discovery has been cancelled. I think, you know, I will say about Star Trek Discovery as well, the amount of people trying to simp for this show on Twitter was just absolutely hilarious. Like, this we should be so thankful to this show because it's given us so many amazing Star Trek properties like, Lower Decks or
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds or Picard. And it's like they were all garbage. Like Picard's pulled it back in season 3, but that's really all you've got. Like everything else has been kind of shit, so we don't really have to thank it for anything. But it's interesting, right? Because we've got these two shows already that have been cancelled. I think there's going to be more on the horizon. I think this could be the beginning of a bit of a domino effect with shows that have been kind of shitty. Most of them are quite politically charged as well. Like they're very infused with the message, and I think they've kind of reached the end of their road in a lot of cases because most of them are quite expensive to make, and they are not generating profits in the slightest.
It's a weird situation we're in right now because it's hard to keep track of all the patterns, right? Because it makes more sense to just be like everything still sucks, moving on. It's like,
Right.
well, have a look really like at everything and the quality of everything and who's getting to write, who's getting to direct, and what shows being cancelled or maintained, or things that the amount of Star Wars movies, man, that's one of the most interesting histories right now from Rise of Skywalker onwards. Like, what is going on with Star Wars? There
Yeah.
could be a book written about that, I think, at this point.
Well, what we're getting now, right, is when I don't know, what can I liken this to? Like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, where it's like, well, you can arrange them into any crazy pattern you want now because the ship's about to sink. So like, do what you want, and like they could produce something genuinely amazing with those deck chairs, and that's kind of what it feels like with all these different franchises. Like, for example, with Star Trek, Discovery, absolute dog shit. Strange New Worlds, I think it started out promising but ended up being shit. Lower Decks, no one cares about. Picard, first 2 seasons were absolute garbage. It's almost like, well, we don't care about this anymore. It's kind of dying anyway. We handed it off to some other guy who took it on and did a really good job with it. Okay, great. Season 3 has been pretty good, and I'll say like wait till you get to the end of it, but it's like no one cares because it's like buried underneath all this other crap, and it's like nobody is going to come into a show 3 seasons in that's been crap up until now and say, well, I'm going to give it a chance at this point. Like as much as I would like them to, I just don't think it's going to happen. And so you had that. You've also got Andor in the Star Wars universe, which is just like a completely different show made by a completely different creative team from anything else that they made. Like I think we've all seen it, and well, Muller and I have seen it, and we've remarked upon how well produced it is, how well thought out it is. But again, it's one show buried beneath all these other crappy shows, and nobody's going to care about it. So it's like they trust or they give over these things to like actual competent people. The stuff that doesn't really matter, that's like you can afford to take a chance on it, and that's the stuff that ends up being actually quite good because it's made by people who care about it. But it doesn't matter because it's so obscure and it's buried beneath so much other stuff that it's not going to make a difference in the grand scheme of things. That's the problem
Yeah.
that we face.
And nothing's also made, at least in these situations, made as a standalone show. It's always meant to feed this other universe. So even something like The Mandalorian started off so good, and now it's kind of like floundering and all over the place because it needed to feed into Boba Fett and it needs to feed into other things. Like everything has some infusion of like corruption from other terrible media as well.
Yep.
I just think that the sort of veil is being lifted gradually on Mandalorian. They can only get away with being cool for so long and cute. Cool and cute. That's what they've got going for them, right? That's the combo. But especially, a lot of people got really pissed off by them resetting after developing. Nobody likes it when you do that in a show. When it's like, look, everybody, progress. And you're like, ooh, ooh. And then they go, nah, nah. You're like, oh god, I know so many people who are just waiting for those bounty hunting episodes, and it's like, you're never gonna get it. You're only gonna get this weird version where weird things happen on the video game quests.
Side quests.
But I mean, mentioning the point I was making earlier is like these are the like two of the higher profile cancellations that we've had. I think there's going to be a lot more coming. I think obviously Discovery's done. Picard's going to be finished after this third season. They're not going to do another one. I think Strange New Worlds is going to end as well because I don't think it's getting anywhere near the viewers that they need. I'd be kind of surprised if Andor gets another season, but it might. I don't know. But it just feels like a lot of these things are ending, and I wouldn't be surprised if this filters over to the Marvel side of things because I know Bob Iger's made statements about this just recently, saying like we need to slow down the rate of like Marvel production.
We need to slow down the rate of shit that we're piling out.
Like we can only pump so much garbage through our sludge pipe, and it's getting clogged up with shit right now. And like a lot of these like more obscure shows, like I think Echo is right on that chopping block. I think Harkness, like Agatha Harkness, could be in trouble as well. Just these shows that they know nobody's really going to care about, but probably cost quite a bit to make. I can see them getting cut.
Yeah,
because they could make anything for a certain amount of time, and they're nearly out of that era now. They can't just make anything anymore.
Right.
Well, look at Ant-Man 3, right? That had theoretically everything going for it. It was the first movie in Phase 5. There was no pandemic anymore. There was nothing to hide behind. There was no reason people wouldn't go to the theaters to see it. I don't think there was even much in the way of competition at the time. And yet, it's not even going to make 500 million. I don't think it's going to lose money for the studio. That is unprecedented for Marvel. It's one thing to have things like Black Widow, kind of flop because it was the middle of the pandemic. It was released day and date on streaming, so fine. Like that's a special case. But this is like everything should have been in place for it. Nobody was going to see it. One, because it's a garbage movie, and two, people are just like over it. And I think that's going to send like a real shockwave through the entire franchise.
Yeah. So remember when Baby Yoda ate a pack of strange blue macaroons, and then they sold 12 packs of plain tasting blue macaroons for $50? Damn. Yeah. I mean, that's just them trying to make up for the fact. Do you guys remember when season 1 came out and they didn't have any merch ready? It was like a disaster. Everyone was like, buy Baby Yoda, buy Baby Yoda. And it's like, we don't have any. And then people had to make custom ones, and they started selling on like eBay or whatever else, Etsy. And then eventually they were like, oh, fuck, we need to get... we need to it's just
missing out on millions.
How did you think of that? Like,
it's like the company that merchandises everything didn't think of that. That's kind of surprising.
Like Star Wars was predicated on merchandise. That's how George Lucas made his billions. It was just like, I've got the merchandise rights. So we're going to have Ewoks, which are basically just walking teddy bears, of course, because like everyone's going to buy them. Everyone wants to have, like every kid wanted a Millennium Falcon. All that stuff. Just, like why wouldn't you think of that? And you've made like the most cutesy, likable character that you could design in a lab. Why wouldn't you have toys of him ready to go?
Yeah, it was such a mistake.
But speaking of Ant-Man, at least before when Ant-Man was coming out, it was leading up to Endgame, right? Like everybody assumed it was going to be part of that bigger story. But I've just never felt like Ant-Man's that strong of a character. He's like, he just says kind of funny things, and like he's not. I just don't. Paul Rudd's great, but I just never thought that the character was that compelling. So I can
He's not,
completely
no.
see that, like
No.
completely flopping. Yeah, you know.
He's just like a kind of like not a sidekick character, but he's like a
yeah,
B or a C tier like
I feel like they never
superhero.
really figured out exactly what they wanted to do with him. Kind of feels like he's because
They
the
had
funny
the,
thing
they had
is-
the right idea in the first movie, where it's like a
Yeah.
heist movie, like there's a bunch
Mhm.
of like misfit criminals like coming together to like use their skills to like steal stuff from a lab or whatever. Great, I can get behind that.
out of curiosity, what do you think Quantumania would have done if it came out between Infinity War and Endgame in terms of box office?
Probably like 800 million.
I think it would have made over
Easily.
$1 billion if Captain Marvel could.
yeah, agreed.
It's like that's the
And that was
benchmark
like
for shit. It's like if Captain Marvel can make $1 billion, anything can.
Anything can.